So that brings us up, Chris, and this is something where I think you're really good with this, Steve. You're good with this. Is when you're managing that process. What's the difference? I'm a construction guy, so to me, critical path method, CPM. There's predecessors, successors. There's defined activities, things like that. Why can't you manage technology projects that way? And what's agile method?
From my perspective, so starting with critical path method. So doing work breakdown structure, trying to determine the critical path that really defines the project schedule, right? You've got to go through a tremendous amount of upfront work, right, to be able to get to that. And when I think of the critical path method, I almost think of, you're going to send something from NASA is going to send a satellite to Mars, right? And when you look at it, they would go ahead and plan out in great detail exactly everything that needs to happen to hit this one spot where it's going to be at the right place at the right time, hopefully in the vicinity of Mars. In terms of looking at how agile development would be, you'd be looking at an opportunity for having a spacecraft that has the ability to adapt. So you'd be looking for how it's going to course correct so it can get around obstacles and still achieve getting there on time. But part of the risk management piece of it is not just in the upfront planning, it's in the actual process of delivering smaller, more manageable pieces of it. And so that's kind of how I would define the difference. CPM, you're trying to manage risk by an invasive amount of planning, and in Agile, you're trying to manage risk on a regular iterative cycle as you're going through things and making course corrections as you go. Steve, what do you think?
I think that was right on. The one detail I would add on Agile is it's not necessarily just small course corrections. It could be an entirely, a giant shift in where the product's going. Because, one of the best things about Agile is, you meet, the product manager or and the product owner, and the owner in this case might be the finance team or whatever. You meet pretty regularly, right? And you figure out, here are the most valuable tasks. Here's what we're going to cover in this iteration. And because you do that, every 2 weeks, every month, whatever your kind of iteration time is, there's way less penalty for doing the wrong thing. And you can absolutely change direction of the project. You may find that once implemented, the thing you thought was going to provide tremendous value, it turns out, oh, shoot, you know what? We thought this was going to be a panacea, this one feature, and it fell flat, and so it allows you to really not just course correct, but absolutely change and focus on what provides the most value today. And I think the other real advantageous part of Agile is the business requirements are going to change. If you CPM out a development project that takes 2 years, well, the business is going to leave the development team behind, in the dust. And so Agile really allows you to sync very closely with the ebbs and flows and changes in business. And, frankly, as a developer, it gets the product in front of people way faster. I get buy-in immediately. That first day I have a deployment that has one feature that one person really wanted. I have somebody that can help me sell that project for life. And that is really invaluable, especially in a small systems development team when you're working, at a construction company and you need people to be cheerleaders for your team. That is so invaluable because it's really hard to convince people why they should like you, from the inside. I've had the unfortunate position of being in that position a few times, and it just doesn't work until you have a cheerleader on the outside. So those are some of the kind of external soft benefits, but I think they're really valuable.
Yeah, I think the merge between those is that you need to have an overall, here's our business, and Chris, as you talked about earlier, looking at the business as a whole, how is it operating, what are the systems, kind of the business operating system, and then you're going to choose which one of those are we going to technology enable, because you can't really do it all. The theory is like let's go do it all, and that's the vision. But the truth is you got to go select some things. So is it technology enabling the business development, the get work process, more better than the purchasing process, better than the estimating? And because you will have to choose, you'll have finite resources. Once you're kind of within that general category, create an overall plan, almost like lean construction. Here's our overall plan of what we would like to go do, and then those are the major milestones and everything like that. You estimate your return on investment. Then you back in though to agile for trying to focus on delivering value as quickly as possible. And it's not just about it's a conversation when you deliver the value, because it's technology going to getting together with say finance and operations and maybe procurement or whomever, and getting together and saying, okay, here's this element, here's this feature. Let's go talk through this. Let's make it work. And you start to add value. And oftentimes the overall design ends up changing, because sometimes, like Steve said, you deliver a feature, it just doesn't take hold. It turns out that feature didn't solve the problem you wanted. Other times it turns out that getting a little bit of information turns out to open up a kind of Pandora's box of opportunities and problems, and you may go super deep into a feature. And you don't want to bottleneck your business's progress because you say, nope, we had a plan, we can't deviate from the plan, because it's pretty unknown. Oh, and by the way, technology changes about every 2 years. So know that every technology you have has a shelf life of 2 years. So no matter what you do, it will be the tools that you use to develop it, and the actual technologies that it runs on will be about half of those will be totally different every 2 years. So that's your other challenge, and why agile is a much better method. 2x4s have looked the same for a really long time.